No one should ever discover betrayal on Christmas Eve, yet that was exactly how her world collapsed. And just when Marina thought things couldn't possibly get worse, a hidden detail surfaced, something powerful enough to change everything, including what she believed about love, loyalty, and herself. The entire street felt frozen in time as the soft December rain fell over the twinkling Christmas lights. Houses all around displayed wreaths, glittery reindeer, golden stars. But none of it touched Marina that night. She walked slowly, her heartbeat trembling out of rhythm, trying to understand how life could flip upside down in a matter of minutes. The smell of Christmas dinner drifted from open windows, stuffing, turkey, warm spices, and it felt like mockery, reminding her of what she wouldn't have this year. Marina held her phone so tightly her arms shook. The screen still showed the last message she'd read just minutes earlier. A message that wasn't meant for her. A message that Kaio, the man with whom she had shared dreams, plans, and secrets, had sent to another woman. It wasn't just flirting. It wasn't just conversation. It was a planned meeting. It was a declaration. The kind of thing that breaks the ground under someone's feet. And the worst part, it was happening today. She had come home early to prepare a Christmas surprise for the two of them. A simple but special dinner. Kaio always said he loved when she cooked, when she set things up with care. Marina had decorated the table, placed red candles, set out the panettone he adored. But when she heard his phone buzzing in the bedroom and decided to take it to the living room, life simply cracked open. She read the message once. Then again. Then 10 more times, as if trying to find some mistake, some misunderstanding, some explanation that might stop her heart from falling into that abyss. But there was no alternate interpretation. The message was direct. Intimate. Final. Tonight, then. 8 p.m. I can't wait to see you without anyone interrupting. Marina felt her stomach twist, as if she had swallowed shards of glass. Her first reaction was to stop breathing. The second was to laugh, one of those short, nervous, disbelieving laughs. The third was the most devastating, the certainty that she was alone on this Christmas Eve. She left the house without thinking. No coat, no turning off the lights, taking nothing but her phone. She needed air. She needed to escape before Kaio returned. She needed to avoid his eyes, the excuses he would surely invent, the speech that would twist guilt into doubt, the questions that would make her doubt herself. She had always been too understanding. This time, she needed distance so she wouldn't be manipulated. The rain grew heavier as she turned the corner to the town square. The city's Christmas tree glowed with thousands of colorful lights, families posed for photos, children ran around wearing Santa hats. Marina felt out of place, as if she were watching a movie she no longer belonged to. As if everyone else's life stayed perfect while hers fell apart. She sat on the bench farthest from the crowd, trying to control the tears threatening to spill. She didn't want to look fragile, but in that moment everything was too heavy. Her breathing was short, her chest burned, and the sense of abandonment filled every thought. Trucks drove by playing Christmas music, ironically singing about love, togetherness, and hope. What a joke, she whispered, feeling her throat close. The cold wind blew through, tossing her hair. She hugged herself, trying to shield her body from the cold and the loneliness wrapping around her. And then, for the first time since leaving home, she allowed the tears to fall. Silent, steady, stubborn. But while she cried, something moved a few yards away. A subtle motion, just enough to catch her eye. She blinked, trying to see better through the rain. Someone stood near the Christmas tree, watching in her direction. A male silhouette, hesitant, as if wanting to approach but afraid to intrude. Marina wiped her face with her sleeve, confused. She didn't know him. Didn't remember ever seeing him. And yet, something about him, the posture, the serious expression, sparked curiosity. He looked worried, as if he recognized the pain she carried. For a moment, their eyes met. And the man took a hesitant step toward her. Marina held her breath, not understanding why. Until he stopped. As if suspended between the impulse to approach and the fear of intruding on such a private moment. And that was exactly when fate began to act, silent, unexpected, and deeply transformative. Marina felt a mix of fear and curiosity when that man stopped, as if he were caught between the desire to help and the fear of invading her privacy. She decided to ignore him, trying to concentrate on her own thoughts. But his presence there, so close and yet so distant, began to affect her. She wondered if he knew what it was like to be in her position, if he had ever been abandoned or betrayed. The rain continued to fall, now gentler, but still enough to blur the reflection of the lights on the sidewalk. Marina looked down at the ground, trying to pull herself together. Raindrops hit the pavement, creating a steady rhythm that almost felt like a soundtrack to her pain. The man, whose name was Jonas Brandt, stepped a little closer, but still maintained a respectful distance. He seemed to be struggling with some internal emotion, as if he wanted to say something but didn't know how to begin. Marina lifted her gaze, meeting his eyes again. This time, she didn't look away. Jonas took a step forward, breathed deeply, and finally spoke, "Are you okay?" His voice was soft, almost a whisper, but it carried a sincerity that cut through the fog of Marina's pain. She shook her head slowly, unable to form words. Jonas's presence, somehow, made her feel less alone. It was as if, in that moment of vulnerability, the universe had sent someone to remind her that kindness and concern still existed in the world. Jonas sat down beside her, carefully leaving space between them. "I've been through that too," he said quietly. "Being left behind, right when you need someone most. It's a pain that seems to have no end." Marina looked at him, surprised. She hadn't expected to find someone who understood so deeply what she was feeling. "How did you?" She couldn't finish the question, but Jonas understood. "I was here waiting for a friend. He said he'd come, that he needed me. But he didn't show up. And I ended up seeing a message he exchanged with someone else, planning to be somewhere else, with other people. Alone, just like you." She felt an instant connection, as if Kaio's betrayal had opened a door for other stories of pain and resilience to enter. Jonas didn't try to console her with empty phrases. He was simply there, sharing his own experience of abandonment and betrayal. "Do you believe in destiny, Marina?" Jonas asked after a while. "Because I think we're not here by accident. Maybe it's the universe giving us a chance to start over, to find something new when everything seems lost." Marina thought about that. The idea of destiny had always intrigued her, but she had never truly believed in it. Now, however, the possibility that something good could emerge from that pain seemed like a faint light at the end of the tunnel. She didn't know if she could move forward, but Jonas's presence, the way he spoke, gave her a sense of comfort and hope she hadn't expected to feel so soon. They sat there, side by side, while the square filled with happy families and excited children. With each passing moment, Marina felt a small part of that pain transform into something different, a gradual acceptance, an understanding that, despite everything, life continued. And perhaps, just perhaps, she could find a new path. The rain had finally turned into a fine mist that left everything glistening under the colorful lights. Marina felt her face warm despite the cold, as if she had taken an emotional punch still throbbing inside her. Jonas remained there beside her, not pushing, not forcing conversation, simply existing in a way that didn't suffocate her. And maybe that was exactly what she needed. She took a deep breath, trying to gather her thoughts. The air smelled of sweet popcorn and wet charcoal, scents that were typical of that square during Christmas time. Children ran around with glowing toy swords, Couples posed for photos and warm embraces, and every gesture of happiness felt like a cruel reminder of the night she was supposed to be living, and would no longer have. "Sorry. I didn't want to seem weak," Marina murmured, her voice cracking as she wiped away a stubborn tear. "You don't seem weak," Jonas replied calmly. "You seem human." Those two words moved her more than they should have. Maybe because no one, not even Kaio, had said something so simple and yet so true in a very long time. Marina looked away, feeling her chest tighten again as she remembered the phone, the message, the dinner she'd prepared with so much care, and the feeling of being replaced without warning, without dignity, without even an official ending. The betrayal wasn't just about the other person. It was about everything she gave, everything she believed, everything she stopped being just to fit into a relationship that was already cracked. "I saw something in your eyes," Jonas continued slowly. "The kind of pain we try to hide even from ourselves." Marina closed her eyes for a moment, trying to breathe deeply before the tears returned. "Tonight was supposed to be a good night," she said in a thin, trembling voice. "I had everything ready, everything. And he scheduled a date with someone else. As if I were disposable." The word echoed between them, disposable. Heavy, cold, unfair. Jonas tilted his head slightly, not touching her, but offering a steady presence. "You know that says more about him than about you, right?" "I don't know," Marina answered honestly. "Because now everything I did feels stupid. Every detail I cared about, every hope I put into us. Like I lived a lie. Like I was the last to notice." That was the part that hurt the most, not the betrayal itself, but the feeling of having been deceived while believing she was safe. Jonas seemed to understand completely. "Sometimes," he said, "people choose to betray not because something is missing in the person beside them, but because something is missing in themselves. Courage, character, responsibility. It's not your fault if someone doesn't know how to love." Marina felt her stomach twist. That sentence hit a sensitive spot, maybe because she had been trying to find a flaw in herself to justify everything. But hearing another version, one that lifted the weight off her shoulders, almost made her collapse all over again. I don't know what to do now," she admitted. "For now, just breathe. That's all you need to do." Jonas looked ahead, toward the lights of the giant Christmas tree. "Later, you decide the rest. But don't decide anything while you're hurting. Pain lies." They stayed silent for a few seconds. A calm silence, different from the kind that hurts. A silence that allowed the heart to breathe a little. Marina watched the lights twinkling, remembering vaguely when Christmas still meant something to her. Her childhood with her parents, the nights filled with laughter, the smell of cinnamon pastries and the feeling of belonging. It was strange how everything could change so fast. How a single message could destroy an entire world she had spent years building. But something inside her, something very small, almost imperceptible, started to awaken. Maybe it was Jonas's presence, maybe the contrast between her pain and the joy around her, maybe just the body trying to survive. But there was a spark. A tiny one, yes, but real. And that was more than she expected to feel that night. "Do you live around here?" Jonas asked softly, opening space for her to answer or not, without pressure. "Yes, close to the main avenue." "And you?" "I'm staying here temporarily. I came to handle some family matters." He hesitated for a moment, as if he had more to say, but held back. "It's a complicated time." Marina nodded. "Complicated describes a lot of things, lately." Suddenly, her phone vibrated in her pocket. Marina froze. Her heart raced with a mix of fear and anger. She knew who it was. She knew the message was from him. From Kyo. From the person who had destroyed her just hours earlier. Jonas noticed the way she turned pale. If you want, I'll stay. Just so you don't go through this alone. Marina took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision. Answer? Ignore? Block? Cry? Every option seemed to bring a new kind of pain. She pulled the phone from her pocket with trembling hands. The screen lit up. His name appeared. Kyo. And just below it, the message preview. Love, something came up. I'll explain soon. Marina felt her blood boil. Love. As if nothing had happened. As if she were stupid. As if he hadn't left the trail of his own betrayal just a few feet from the home they shared. Jonas watched her, attentive, respectful, without intruding. But Marina felt she was about to explode, and she didn't know if it was from pain or courage. Marina looked at the message, and something inside her simply snapped. Not from sadness, from anger. That pure, crystalline anger that burns from the inside and demands to be released. She typed with trembling fingers, each letter coming out like a silent scream. Unexpected? You scheduled a date with someone else. I saw the message. Don't insult my intelligence. She sent it. And immediately regretted it and didn't regret it at the same time. Jonas remained beside her, watching everything with an expression that blended understanding and concern. He didn't try to intervene, but his presence felt like an anchor, something keeping her grounded, stopping her from drowning completely in the wave of emotions. Her phone vibrated again. Kyo replying. Marina, it's not what you think. Let me explain in person. Please. She let out a bitter, almost hysterical laugh. Explain? Explain what? That you're a liar? That I'm an idiot? That we don't mean anything to you? Each word was a fist striking her own chest. Because the truth was she still loved him. Even knowing about the betrayal, even feeling the ground collapse beneath her, a part of her, that weak, desperate part, still wanted to believe there was a magical explanation that would make everything okay. But there wasn't. And she knew that. Jonas placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. You don't have to answer right now. You don't need anything right now except to breathe. Marina took a deep breath, feeling her chest burn. His hand on her shoulder was warm, real, different from everything she'd felt with Kyo in the past months. With Kyo, she had always felt like she was walking on thin ice, never knowing when it would crack. With Jonas, even though he was a stranger, there was safety. She blocked the number. Just like that. Blocked. And when she saw the action confirmed on the screen, she felt a mixture of relief and panic. What had she just done? Blocked the man she lived with? The man she had planned a life with? But at the same time, that gesture, so small, so simple, was the first act of self-love she had managed to make that night. Done, she whispered, more to herself than to Jonas. Done, he echoed, confirming she had done the right thing. Marina slipped her phone back into her pocket as if she were burying that part of her life. Her eyes met his again, and this time there was something different in her gaze. A fragile but real determination. A small flame of courage lit in the middle of the darkness. Thank you, she said. For being here. For not trying to fix me. No one needs fixing, Jonas replied. We just need witnesses. Someone who sees us falling and doesn't judge us for it. They stayed there a little longer, as the night deepened and the square began to empty. Families left, children fell asleep in their parents' arms, couples cuddled beneath the lights. And Marina and Jonas remained, two strangers who had become companions in pain on a night that was supposed to be joyful. "Do you have somewhere to go?" Jonas asked, and his voice carried genuine concern. Marina hesitated. Going home meant facing the emptiness of the apartment, the still-lit candles, the panettone on the table, the dinner no one would eat. It meant being alone with her thoughts, with the hurt, with the reality that her life had just changed completely. "No. I don't want to go home right now," she admitted. Jonas nodded, as if he had expected that. "There's a cafe nearby that stays open late. They make a hot chocolate that's, well, comforting. If you want, we can go there. No pressure. No obligation. Just, be somewhere warm." Marina looked at him, trying to understand why a stranger cared so much. But maybe it was precisely because he was a stranger that he could offer compassion without expectations. Without a history of disappointment, without broken promises, without a pile of lies. "All right," she answered softly. "Let's go." They stood up together, and Marina felt her legs weaken, as if she had run an emotional marathon. The rain had stopped completely now, leaving only the damp scent of earth and leaves. The night was cold, but not a cold that hurt, it was a cold that cleansed, that awakened. As they walked down the street toward the cafe, Marina realized something that scared her a little. She was starting to feel alive again. Not happy, not yet. But alive. As if that burst of anger, that act of blocking him, that decision to leave the house had awakened something inside her that had been asleep. The cafe was small and cozy, with wooden tables and warm yellow lights that created a refuge-like atmosphere. There were only a few people there, an elderly couple sipping coffee, a young man studying alone, a woman reading a book. Everyone seemed absorbed in their own worlds, without invading each other's space. Jonas ordered 2 hot chocolates and 2 slices of chocolate cake. Marina didn't protest, letting him take care of that moment. It felt comforting not to have to make decisions, not to have to be strong, not to pretend everything was fine. When the hot chocolate arrived, still steaming, Marina wrapped her hands around the mug, letting the warmth seep into her. The first sip was almost medicinal, sweet, hot, comforting. Exactly what she needed. "Do you want to talk about it?" Jonas asked gently. "Or would you rather stay quiet?" Marina thought about the question. Part of her wanted to keep everything inside, protecting the wound. But another part, that part that had just learned blocking was possible, wanted to spill everything out. "We've been together for 3 years, she began slowly. He was always attentive, you know? In the beginning. Flowers, messages, that kind of thing. But then he grew distant. Busy. Always with excuses. And I tried to be understanding. Tried to be the perfect partner. I cooked, took care of the house, supported his dreams. I did everything a woman is supposed to do." The bitterness in her last words was unmistakable. "And him?" Jonas asked softly. "He cheated. Probably for months. And I didn't even notice. Or maybe I did, but preferred not to see it. It's easier to live in a lie than face the truth, you know?" Jonas nodded, fully understanding. Sometimes we choose familiar pain instead of the uncertainty of the unknown. Exactly, Marina breathed deeply. And now I don't know who I am without him. I spent so much time trying to be what he wanted that I forgot to be myself. That confession came out as a whisper, but it carried the weight of years of sacrifice, of self-erasure, of small daily deaths. Jonas watched her with an intensity that wasn't invasive but warm. "You know what I think? That maybe tonight, so awful, so unfair, is exactly what you needed to find yourself again. Because now you have permission. Permission to be selfish, to think about yourself, to rebuild. Marina felt her eyes fill again, but this time it wasn't just pain. It was also something that looked like hope. The night moved on, and the cafe grew even emptier. Marina and Jonas stayed there, speaking in whispers as if they were inside a confessional. The hot chocolate had gone cold, but neither of them cared. Something more important was happening, a connection that went beyond words, a mutual understanding only people who have been betrayed can truly recognize. You know what's strange? Marina asked, breaking a silence that had lasted several minutes. I should be furious. And I am. But I'm also relieved. As if a part of me already knew something was wrong, and now I can finally stop pretending everything is fine. Jonas nodded slowly. Betrayal is like that. It hurts, but it also sets you free. Because you don't have to waste energy anymore trying to save something that was already dead. Marina looked at him with curiosity. You talk like you've been through this many times. Not many times, Jonas replied, and something in the way he said it suggested there was more behind his story. But once was enough to learn the lesson. And that lesson cost me dearly. He paused, as if considering how much to reveal. Marina waited without pressuring him. She had learned that sometimes people need time to decide if they trust someone enough to open old wounds. I had a best friend, Jonas finally continued. Since childhood. We grew up together, shared everything, dreams, secrets, even girlfriends at times. But there was one thing I didn't know he shared with me, envy. He envied my success, my life, everything I built. And instead of telling me, instead of being honest, he started sabotaging me. He spread rumors, talked behind my back, tried to push away the people I loved. Marina felt her heart squeeze as she listened. It was a different kind of betrayal from hers, but equally devastating. How did you find out? She asked softly. By accident. Or fate, if you prefer. I saw messages he exchanged with other people, conversations he had with me versus the ones he had with them. And everything he told me was a lie. Everything. Apparently from the very beginning. And I couldn't understand how someone I loved so much could hate me so deeply. Jonas took a deep breath, as if he were still processing that hurt. It took me a long time to realize the problem wasn't me. It was him. His lack of character, his inability to deal with his own insecurities. And once I finally accepted that, I was able to let go. Marina absorbed every word like pearls of wisdom. Because it was exactly what she needed to hear, that Kaio's betrayal wasn't a reflection of her, but a reflection of him. His choices, his weakness, his inability to love properly. How long did it take? Marina asked. For you to heal? Months. Maybe a whole year, Jonas answered honestly. It wasn't linear. Some days I woke up okay, and others the pain hit so hard it felt like everything was happening all over again. But eventually, the good days started outweighing the bad ones. And then, one day, I just woke up and realized I didn't think about him anymore. Marina felt a mix of hope and despair hearing that. A whole year? She didn't know if she could endure that long. But at the same time, knowing there was light at the end, even if distant, meant something. And now? She asked. Did you forgive him? Jonas thought about the question for a long moment. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. And it isn't absolution. Forgiving is simply deciding you don't want to carry that anger anymore. That you want to live your life without letting his betrayal keep killing you. Because that's what we do when we don't forgive, we keep dying, day after day. Those words echoed inside Marina like a bell ringing somewhere far away. Because she knew that if she wasn't careful, she could spend years, decades, even letting Kaio's betrayal define her. Letting the pain paralyze her. letting the anger consume everything good left inside her. "Do you think I can do it?" Marina asked, her voice barely audible. "Forgive? Move forward?" Jonas looked directly into her eyes, certainty shining in his gaze. "You already started. You blocked his number. You left the house. You chose not to respond with rage. You're doing everything right, Marina. All you need to do now is keep going." Marina felt tears falling again, but this time they were different. Not tears of despair, but of relief. As if someone had finally given her permission to be strong, to care about herself, to choose herself. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't been there." "You would have done exactly the same," Jonas replied with a soft smile. "Because you're stronger than you think. We always are." They stayed there a while longer, talking about small things, movies they liked, books they'd read, dreams they'd set aside. And with each conversation, Marina felt a part of herself returning. Not the part that loved Kaio, but the part that loved living, that had curiosity, that had hope. When the cafe began to close, Jonas offered to walk her to a nearby hotel. Marina hesitated. Going home was still unthinkable, but accepting help from a stranger was also frightening. But then she remembered his words, "You're stronger than you think." And she decided to be strong enough to accept help. On the way to the hotel, they passed by the square again. The Christmas tree still glowed, but it seemed different now. It was no longer a symbol of everything Marina had lost, but a symbol of everything she could still gain. Of new beginnings. Of second chances. Of fate acting in unexpected ways. "Will you be okay?" Jonas asked when they reached the hotel entrance. "I think so," Marina answered, and surprisingly, she believed it. "Thanks to you." "Thanks to yourself," Jonas corrected gently. "I was just there." But Marina knew it was more than that. He had been exactly what she needed in that moment, a witness, a confidant, a reminder that there was still kindness in the world. And when she entered the hotel and lay down on the bed in that strange room, for the first time that night, she could breathe without feeling like she would explode. But as she drifted to sleep, there was something she didn't know. Something Jonas had kept to himself, something that would change everything when it finally came to light. Because Jonas wasn't just a stranger who happened to be in the square by chance. He had a secret. A secret directly connected to Kaio. And that secret was about to transform that night of betrayal into something far more complicated, far deeper, far more devastating. Marina woke up in the hotel room with the sun shining through the window, a weight still present in her chest, though not as suffocating as the night before. She sat up in bed, trying to organize her thoughts. The memory of Jonas and the conversation they'd shared in the square brought her a small sense of comfort. She stood and walked to the window, looking down at the street below. The city was already moving, people rushing by, cars honking, the world spinning as if nothing had happened. Marina felt a pang as she remembered the dinner that never happened. Was the table still set? Were the candles still burning? She decided she didn't want to know. She didn't want to go back to that apartment, didn't want to face the remains of a night that should have been magical but had turned into a nightmare. Marina needed a new beginning, a new place, a new perspective. She remembered Jonas and felt a sudden urge to see him again. Maybe he could help her find that new beginning. She grabbed her phone and opened her messaging app, searching for his contact. Jonas had given her his number before saying goodbye the night before. "Hi Jonas, it's Marina. I woke up and I'm not sure what to do. Are you around?" She sent the message, anxious for a reply. She didn't know if he'd be available, but she needed someone who understood, who didn't judge, who wouldn't try to fix everything with easy solutions. While she waited, Marina decided to take a shower. The hot water on her face felt like a blessing, washing away some of the previous night's pain, clearing her mind. She dressed slowly, gathering her strength to face the day. Jonas replied quickly. Hi Marina, just saw your message. I'm around, yes. Where are you? We can meet. Marina smiled, a weak but genuine smile. I'm at the hotel near the square. Want to meet for breakfast? Of course. 30 minutes? Perfect. She went down to the hotel cafe, her stomach twisting with anxiety. She didn't know exactly what to expect from that meeting, but she knew she needed it. The cafe was almost empty, which was a relief. Marina preferred quiet places where she didn't have to pretend to be happy. Jonas arrived right on time, wearing a tired but warm smile. Good morning, he said as he sat across from her. Good morning, Marina replied, feeling a bit lighter in his presence. They ordered coffee and toast, and as they ate, Jonas began talking about plans for the day. How about we walk around the city? Explore some new places, maybe even stop by a park. Sometimes changing the environment helps clear your mind. Marina nodded. That sounds like a good idea. I need a distraction. They walked through the city, passing squares, parks, and shopping streets. With each step, Marina felt as if she were slowly putting distance between herself and the pain of the previous night. Jonas was excellent company, knowing when to talk and when to stay silent. He shared stories from his life, past trips, happy moments, sad ones, and each story felt like a bridge inviting Marina to share her own. In a park, they found a small Christmas fair. Stalls sold crafts, traditional foods, and gifts. Marina stopped in front of a booth selling handmade tree ornaments. She picked up a star-shaped ornament, running her fingers over its gold-painted edges. Pretty, isn't it? Jonas commented. Yes, Marina said, though her mind was far away. She thought about how, once, she had believed Kaio was a star in her life, bright, steady, reliable. And how now, he seemed no more than a shadow, something unworthy of her attention. They kept walking, and with each step, each conversation, each shared laugh, Marina felt herself being rebuilt, bit by bit. It wasn't a magical cure, but it was a beginning. A sign that despite everything, life kept moving. When the sun began to set, Jonas suggested they head back to the cafe where they'd first met. Maybe we can think about a plan for you, he said. Marina agreed. She needed a plan. Something to help her move forward, rebuild her life, find a new purpose. At the cafe, while they drank more hot chocolate, Jonas began discussing possible next steps. Have you thought about doing something completely new? Like moving to a new city, starting a hobby, maybe even a new job? Marina thought about it. I've always wanted to write. Tell stories. But I never had the courage. Why not start now? Writing can be therapeutic. And you already have an incredible story to tell. Marina smiled as the idea began taking shape. Maybe writing was exactly what she needed, a way to process everything, to transform pain into something creative, into something that might help others feel less alone. Do you think I can do it? She asked. I'm sure of it, Jonas replied. And if you need someone to read it, to give feedback, I'm here. Marina felt a deep sense of gratitude. Jonas's presence, his understanding, was helping her see a future she hadn't believed possible. And as she thought about how to begin this new journey, a sense of determination started to grow inside her. But there was still a twist Marina didn't expect. Jonas had something to reveal, something that would completely change the way she saw Kaio and the betrayal. Marina, Jonas began, hesitant, there's something I need to tell you about Kaio. Marina froze, her heart racing. What is it? Jonas took a deep breath, knowing what he was about to say could trigger a new wave of emotions. I know him. In a way you probably wouldn't imagine. Marina felt the air leave her lungs. The way Jonas said it, with hesitation, with weight, made it clear it wasn't something simple. She set her cup of hot chocolate down carefully, as if any sudden movement might break something inside her. "What do you mean you know him?" she asked, her voice weaker than she intended. Jonas took a deep breath, running a hand over his face. There was conflict in his eyes, as if he had spent the whole night wrestling with the decision to tell her this. "I came to this city because I got a call. A call from a woman who said she needed help. That her boyfriend, Kyle, was involved in something wrong. Something that could hurt a lot of people." Marina blinked, trying to process his words. "What kind of wrong?" "Scams," Jonas answered, and the word dropped between them like a stone. "Kyle doesn't work at a law office like you probably believe. He works in a fraud scheme. He convinces women like you, to invest money in fake projects. Then he disappears with the money." Marina felt the ground vanish beneath her. No. That wasn't possible. Kyle was many things: a cheater, a liar, a weak man, but a criminal? A con artist? "You're lying," she said, but her voice trembled, betraying the doubt spreading inside her. "I wouldn't tell you this if it weren't true," Jonas replied calmly. "The woman who called me is one of the victims. She lost nearly 100,000 reis. And when she tried to find Kyle, she discovered he had vanished. But before that, she discovered he was doing the same thing to other women. At the same time." Marina felt her head spin. Pieces began falling into place in ways she didn't want them to. The periods when Kyle disappeared, claiming he was working. The sudden trips. The money he always had but never explained. The way he encouraged her to invest in certain projects she had refused because something didn't feel right. "Why didn't you tell me this last night?" Marina asked, feeling anger begin to bubble inside her. "Because you were shattered," Jonas said honestly. "You had just discovered a betrayal. If I had told you things were worse than you thought, that you had been deceived in much deeper ways, I think you would have fallen apart completely. You needed time to breathe, to recover a little, before hearing this bomb." Marina stood up from the chair and walked toward the cafe window. She watched people passing outside, people who probably had normal lives, without betrayals, without scams, without devastating secrets. Why couldn't she have a life like that? "How much?" she asked, without turning around. "How much what?" "How much money did he ask me to invest? How much did I lose?" Jonas hesitated. "You invested?" Marina turned to him, tears running down her face. "Yes. 3 months ago. He said it was a tech project, that it would bring great returns. I put in 30,000 reis. Money I saved for years. Money I was supposed to use to go back to school, to take a course I always dreamed of taking." She felt the ground disappear again. It wasn't just her heart that had been broken. It was her whole life. Her dreams. Her future. Jonas stood and walked toward her, but he didn't try to touch her. He just stayed there, present, witnessing the pain exploding inside her. "I'm sorry," he said, and his voice carried absolute sincerity. "You're sorry?" Marina laughed, a hysterical, almost uncontrollable laugh. "You come here, you save me from a night of despair, you make me believe there's still goodness in the world, and then you tell me I'm a fraud victim? That the man I loved stole from me? That everything I believed was a lie?" "Yes," Jonas replied simply. "And I am sorry for all of it." Marina fell back into her chair, feeling as if someone had punched her in the stomach. Kyle's betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was financial. It was criminal. It was far worse than she ever imagined. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked, her voice now small, broken. "Why didn't you go straight to the police?" "Because," Jonas said, sitting back down across from her, "the woman who called me asked that I speak with you first. She believed you could be an ally. That you could help gather evidence, help build a case against him." Because the more victims there are, the stronger the case becomes. Marina looked at him, her eyes full of tears. You want me to help arrest the man I loved? I want you to help stop a criminal, Jonas corrected gently. The man you loved never existed. He was an illusion. A carefully crafted lie. The real Kaio is someone very different. Marina felt as if she were in a movie, as if this couldn't possibly be happening. But at the same time, there was a part of her that knew it was true. Because things never fully make sense until you see the whole picture. And now, she was seeing it. I need time, she whispered. I can't process all of this right now. I know, Jonas replied. And you can have all the time you need. But, Marina, there's something else you need to know. She lifted her gaze, waiting for the next blow. The woman who called me, the first victim we found, she's my sister. Marina's heart stopped. Because now everything made sense. Why Jonas was there. Why he cared so much. Why he had a secret. He wasn't just a compassionate. Marina's heart stopped. Because now everything made sense. Why Jonas was there. Why he cared so much. Why he had a secret. He wasn't just a compassionate stranger who happened to sit beside her on a bench on Christmas Eve. He had a wound of his own. A wound carved by the same man who had shattered her life. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The cafe around them blurred into background noise, distant clinking cups, soft murmurs, the hum of an espresso machine. Marina felt as if the air had thickened, as if reality had tilted just slightly out of place. When she finally managed to speak, her voice was hollow. Your sister, she swallowed hard. She trusted him too? Jonas nodded, jaw tightening. More than she should have. She believed every word he said. Every promise. And when she realized the truth, it nearly destroyed her. She's still trying to rebuild her life. A sharp pain shot through Marina's chest, sympathy, anger, devastation, all tangled together. So this wasn't an accident, Marina murmured. You being there last night. You didn't just find me. Jonas shook his head slowly. No. I came to look for you. To try to understand who you were. I didn't know how to approach you, not until I saw you sitting alone, crying under the Christmas lights. I recognized the expression. The same one my sister had when her world fell apart. Marina felt breathless. Every revelation was another blow, but also another piece falling into place. So you followed me last night? She whispered. I did, Jonas admitted, not hiding from her gaze. But not to scare you. Not to manipulate you. I just needed to be sure you weren't in danger. Kaio disappears when he feels cornered. And when he disappears, people get hurt. A chill ran down Marina's spine. The betrayal. The message. The money. The lies. And now this. What does he want? She asked, almost afraid of the answer. Jonas leaned forward, lowering his voice. He wants to leave the country. And he's collecting as much money as he can before he does. Marina's stomach dropped. Suddenly it wasn't just about heartbreak, it was about survival. About justice. About stopping a predator. He used me, she whispered, tasting bitterness like metal on her tongue. Not just my feelings. My future. Jonas's expression softened with something like sorrow. Or understanding. I'm sorry you're going through this. Truly. And I know this is a lot to take in. But you're not alone. Not anymore. You can help stop him, Marina. You can help protect other women. Marina pressed a hand to her forehead, breathing shakily. Her mind felt like a storm, memories flashing like lightning, everything she thought she knew twisting into something unrecognizable. Finally, she looked up. What exactly do you want me to do? Jonas hesitated for a heartbeat. First, we gather proof. Everything he promised you, every message, every transaction. Then, we work with the victims. And when the police have enough, he gets arrested, Marina finished, her voice shaky but firm. Jonas nodded. A silence stretched between them, heavy but electric. Marina could feel something shifting inside her. Fear, yes. But also, strength. A spark of something she hadn't felt in a long time. Resolve. She wiped her face, exhaling slowly. Okay. I'll help. Jonas's shoulders relaxed, relief flickering across his expression, but also something deeper. Respect. Admiration. But then Marina added quietly. On one condition. Jonas lifted his eyebrows. Anything. You tell me everything. No more secrets. He held her gaze, steady and sincere. You have my word. And in that moment, broken, exhausted, terrified, Marina realized something unexpected. This wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning. Marina felt the weight of Jonas's revelation like a new layer of ice over her already frozen heart. His sister, a victim of Kaio. That explained the urgency, the sincerity, the depth of the connection they had formed. And it also explained why Jonas was so determined to help her. She took a deep breath, trying to process everything. Your sister, is she okay? Jonas shook his head slowly. She's trying to recover. But she lost a lot. Not just money, but trust. In everyone. Including me. Marina felt a pang of guilt for questioning his sincerity. I'm sorry, Jonas. I didn't realize it was this serious. He nodded, but his gaze was distant, as if he were reliving the difficult moments with his sister. She asked me to come here, to try to stop Kaio before he hurt anyone else. She knew he had a pattern. That he wouldn't stop with you. Marina felt her stomach twist. A pattern? Yes, Jonas confirmed. He's been doing this for years. Changes cities, changes victims, but never changes his method. He's a master at building illusions. Marina felt a mix of anger and sadness. And was I one of those illusions? No, Jonas said quickly, touching her hand gently. You were a victim of an illusion. And now, you have the chance to do something about it. To help stop him. She looked at him, feeling torn. Part of her wanted to scream, wanted to burn everything that reminded her of Kaio. Another part wanted to understand, wanted to know more, wanted to arm herself with all the information to face what came next. What do you suggest we do? Marina finally asked. Jonas thought for a moment. First, gather all the proof you have. Emails, messages, anything that shows his involvement with these fake projects. Second, contact other victims. The more people, the stronger our case will be. Third, go to the police. With everything documented. Marina nodded, feeling a bit stronger. I can do that. I need to do that. They spent the afternoon gathering everything Marina had, messages, emails, receipts of transfers. Jonas helped, guided, but let her make the decisions. It was important that she felt in control, that she was rebuilding her life piece by piece. When they finished, it was already evening. Marina felt a deep exhaustion, but also a sense of relief. As if, by organizing all of that, she was finally putting an end to the story she had lived with Kaio. Do you think he'll try to contact me again? Marina asked as she put away her laptop. Probably, Jonas replied. But now you're prepared. Now you know the truth. Marina nodded, feeling a bit safer. And I won't fall for it again. Jonas smiled, a tired smile, but full of pride. That's it. You're stronger than he ever imagined. They walked back to the hotel, now in silence, but a different kind of silence. It was a silence of complicity, of understanding, of two people who had been deceived by the same man, but who were now united to face him. When they arrived, Jonas stopped and looked at Marina. "You're going to be okay. Remember that you're not alone in this." Marina nodded, feeling deep gratitude. "Thank you, Jonas. For everything." He smiled gently. "You're welcome, Marina. Sleep well. Tomorrow will be a new day." And with those words, he said goodbye and left, leaving Marina with her thoughts and a new determination. She entered her room, feeling exhausted, but also a bit lighter. As if, by facing the truth, she had begun to free herself from the weight that Kaio represented. And as she lay in bed, Marina thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the discovery, the alliance with Jonas. And for the first time since she discovered the message, she felt that maybe, just maybe, there was a path forward. A path that didn't include Kaio. A path that might lead her to a new beginning. But what Marina still didn't know was that Kaio wouldn't give up easily. He had plans that involved her, involved money, and involved escaping the city before everything came to light. And that twist, that new layer of conflict, was about to unfold. Night fell silently over the city, and Marina, despite her exhaustion, couldn't sleep. The hotel room ceiling felt more threatening than comforting. Every time she closed her eyes, Kaio's image appeared, not the romantic, playful, promise-filled Kaio she once knew, but the Kaio Jonas had described. The scammer. The manipulator. The man who won hearts only to empty bank accounts and disappear. She tossed in bed, restless. Her breath came shallow, her mind racing. The room felt too warm, or maybe it was her body unable to find any rest. It was as if something inside her was being pulled tight, a thread tied to a past she wanted to cut but that remained tangled around her chest. She got up and walked to the window. The street below was almost deserted, lit by yellow street lamps that cast long shadows over the damp asphalt. Christmas lingered in the air, but instead of comfort, it now brought a painful nostalgia. The distant smell of firewood, the faint glow of holiday lights, everything seemed to mock the night she should have been living. A knot formed in her throat. She rested her forehead against the cold glass. How could Kaio? That question pounded harder than all the others. Why cheat? Why lie? Why steal from someone who believed in him, who opened doors, who opened her heart? Marina closed her eyes, and a vivid memory surfaced. 3 months earlier. Kaio smiling as he held her in the kitchen. He told her he had an innovative project, that he needed to raise capital quickly and that she was the only one he trusted. Marina, enchanted, believed him. She transferred the money. Asked if it was safe. He swore it was. Said she was the only person he wanted by his side when everything worked out. The lie had been there, whole. And she swallowed it like truth. The betrayal wasn't just the scheduled meeting with another woman. It was everything else. It was all of it at once. Marina felt her breath falter. She returned to the bed, sat on the edge, hugging her knees. She considered calling Jonas, but it was late. She didn't want to seem desperate, even though she was. But before she could decide anything, her phone vibrating on the nightstand made her entire body freeze. She hadn't unblocked Kaio. So who could it be at that hour? She grabbed the phone with trembling hands. An unknown number. The message preview appeared on the screen. Marina, please don't hang up. I know that you know. And I can explain. Her heart stopped. It was him. Even blocked, Kaio found a way. Another SIM card. Another number. Another lie. Marina stood frozen, staring at the screen as if she could incinerate it with her gaze alone. The anger rose all at once, hot, pulsing, almost violent. She pressed the side button and turned off the screen. Then turned it back on. The message was still there, like a silent threat. Deep down, she knew, Kyle wouldn't give up easily. He never did when it came to maintaining control. The phone vibrated again. Another message. You don't understand what's happening. Give me 10 minutes. That's all. Marina felt a cold wave run down her spine. He sounded desperate. And that wasn't normal. Kyle wasn't the type of man who begged. He was the type who manipulated. Who shaped situations to seem like a victim. This urgency, something was wrong. The phone vibrated for the third time. It's a matter of life or death. Marina, frightened, took a step back as if that could protect her. But her mind was already on alert. Life or death? Was it just another trick? Another performance? More theater to try to bend her to his will? Or, was Kaio actually involved in something bigger than she imagined? Before she could decide, someone knocked on the hotel room door. 3 soft knocks. But firm. Marina froze. Marina? The voice came muffled, but it was unmistakable. It's me. Jonas. She ran to the door, looked through the peephole, and felt relief break through some of the tension. She opened the door quickly. Jonas, what happened? She asked, trying to sound calm. But Jonas didn't look like himself from earlier. His face serious. His gaze tense. His chest rising and falling with rapid breathing. We need to talk. Now. He entered the room without waiting for an invitation, closing the door behind him. I got information that changes everything. Marina felt her stomach sink. What happened? Jonas ran a hand through his hair, clearly nervous. My sister, she got a call. From one of Kaio's accomplices. Marina's eyes widened. Accomplices? Yes. He never worked alone. But this woman. Jonas took a deep breath. She decided to talk. Because the scheme is falling apart. And she knows she'll go down with it if she doesn't run first. Marina felt her throat dry. What did she say? Jonas looked at her with an expression that mixed urgency and deep concern. That Kaio is going to try to flee the city. Today. And that before he leaves, he wants to find you. Marina took a step back, her entire body trembling. Find, why? Jonas hesitated. And that terrified her even more. Because you're the last piece missing for him to close one of the scams. He needs access to a document that's in your name. A document you don't even know exists. Marina felt her head spin. What do you mean, a document? Marina, Jonas said, stepping closer, speaking low and firm, Kaio registered a fake company using your information. Your name. Your ID number. He's planning to use that company to divert money before he disappears. The floor vanished. The room grew smaller. The air grew heavy. Marina put her hand against the wall to keep from falling. He involved me in a crime? Without me knowing? Yes, Jonas confirmed. And that's why he's desperate. Without you, he can't finalize the scam. And without finalizing it, he can't escape. Marina felt her heart beating so hard it seemed like it would tear through her chest. Jonas, what do I do? He didn't answer immediately. He just stepped closer, held her shoulders, and looked deep into her eyes. From now on, you don't answer him anymore. You don't respond. You don't meet him. And most importantly, you don't stay alone. Marina swallowed hard, feeling the gravity of the situation for the first time. He won't give up, will he? Jonas shook his head slowly. No. And that's exactly why we need to act before he does. Marina felt her legs tremble. The Christmas night, which was already destroyed, had just transformed into something far worse. The phone vibrated again in her hand. Another message from the unknown number. I'm coming to the hotel. We need to talk face to face. Don't make me do something we'll both regret. Marina showed the message to Jonas, her hand shaking. His jaw clenched. Pack a bag. We're leaving. Now. Where are we going? Marina whispered. Somewhere safe, Jonas said, already moving toward the closet. Somewhere Kaio can't find you. And as Marina began throwing clothes into a bag with trembling hands, she realized that Christmas Eve, the night that was supposed to be about love and celebration, had become a race against time. A race where the stakes were no longer just her heart. They were her freedom. Her safety. Her life. Jonas moved quickly through the room as if every second counted. He yanked the curtains shut, blocking any view from outside. Marina watched him, feeling panic rise up her throat like bile. Everything was happening too fast. Everything was slipping out of control. We need to make a plan, Jonas said, sitting at the edge of the bed. And we need to make it now. Before he tries something desperate. Marina sat beside him, her body still trembling. Does he know where I am? How did he get my number? He always knew where you were, Jonas replied, guilt coloring his voice. Kaio has contacts. People who work with him. People who help him track his victims. It's part of the operation. The word victims echoed inside Marina like a funeral bell. She wasn't just a deceived woman. She was a victim of organized crime. The reality of it hit her like a punch to the stomach. So he can come here? She asked, her voice barely audible. He can. And he probably will try. Jonas stood, walking to the window and peeking through the curtains. But not while I'm here. Not while you're with me. Marina felt a mix of gratitude and fear. Jonas was her anchor, but he was also a reminder that she was in real danger. This wasn't about a broken heart anymore. It was about personal safety. What exactly did your sister say? Marina asked, trying to gather information, trying to understand the full scope of what was happening. Jonas breathed deeply, as if reliving that conversation hurt him. She said Kaio has a deadline. Until tomorrow night. If he can't close this scam, he loses a large sum of money. Money that isn't his. Money that belongs to very dangerous people. Marina felt her heart racing. Dangerous people? Yes. Kaio doesn't work alone. He's just one operator in a larger network. A network involving money laundering, large-scale fraud, maybe even worse things. Jonas turned to her. And these people don't joke when it comes to money. Marina stood, beginning to pace back and forth across the room like a caged animal. So what you're saying is I'm not just a victim of a con artist. I'm a victim of a criminal organization? Yes, Jonas confirmed. And that's why we need to act fast. We need to go to the police. Today. Now. Marina stopped pacing. The police? Jonas, if I do that, Kaio will know. And if he's involved with dangerous people. He'll know anyway, Jonas interrupted. And the longer you wait, the more dangerous it becomes. Because he's desperate. And desperate men do reckless things. Marina sat down again, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. All she wanted was a simple life. An honest relationship. Maybe marriage, children, growing old beside someone who loved her. But instead, she was trapped in a nightmare she never asked to live. What if I don't? She asked, her voice small. What if I just disappear? Change cities, change my name, start from scratch? Jonas approached her, kneeling to meet her at eye level. Because that won't work. Kaio will find you. And when he does, he'll be even more desperate, even more dangerous. The only way you stay safe is to face this now. With the police. With evidence. With protection. Marina looked into his eyes, seeing absolute sincerity. You really believe this will work? Yes, Jonas replied, and there was so much conviction in his voice that Marina wanted to believe. Because you're not alone. You have my sister. You have other victims. You have evidence. And you have the truth. And the truth, Marina, is the most powerful thing that exists. At that moment, Marina's phone vibrated again. She picked it up, her hands trembling. Another message from Kaio. Marina, I'm outside the hotel. I need to talk to you. In person. It's important. Her blood froze. Jonas saw the color drain from her face. What is it? He's here, Marina whispered. He's outside the hotel. Jonas jumped up, rushing back to the window. He peeked through the curtains, scanning the street below. And then he saw her. A male silhouette, standing beneath a tree, looking up at the hotel. Even in the darkness, it was possible to recognize the tense posture, the way he moved, like a predator waiting for the right opportunity. It was Kaio. He's there, Jonas confirmed, his voice low and controlled, but heavy with tension. And he's not alone. Marina stepped closer, looking over Jonas's shoulder. Her heart nearly stopped when she saw there were two men with Kaio. Large men, with hard features, who clearly weren't there for a friendly conversation. Who are they? Marina asked, panic taking hold. The collectors, Jonas replied, his voice dark. The dangerous people I mentioned. They came to collect the money Kaio lost. And he wants to use you as a bargaining chip. Marina's legs weakened. She leaned against the wall, trying to breathe. What do we do? She asked, and her voice came out as a desperate whisper. Jonas looked at her, and there was determination in his eyes. We don't answer. We don't go down. And we call the police. Now. Before everything spirals completely out of control. He grabbed his phone, beginning to dial the police number. Marina watched, feeling as if she were living a nightmare she couldn't wake from. It had all started with a message. A simple message of betrayal. And now, she was trapped in a situation involving organized crime, dangerous people, and a fight for her own safety. The police dispatcher's voice answered on the other end. Jonas began explaining the situation, giving the hotel's address, describing the men downstairs, requesting immediate assistance. And as he spoke, Marina looked out the window again. Kaio had lifted his gaze toward the hotel. And when his eyes found the window where she stood, even though he couldn't see her through the curtains, Marina felt a chill run down her spine. Because in that moment, she knew that nothing would ever be the same. The Christmas night had transformed into something much bigger, much more dangerous, much more real than anything she had ever imagined. And the real battle was only just beginning. The police siren echoed through the street, cutting through the night like a cry of salvation. Marina watched the blue and red lights flood the room, creating shadows that danced across the walls. Down below, Kaio and the two men moved quickly, like cockroaches exposed to light. Kaio ran in one direction, the collectors in another. The police had arrived at the exact moment, preventing anything worse from happening. Jonas breathed deeply, his body relaxing slightly. There. Now you're safe. But Marina knew that safe was a relative word. The officers descended from their cars, running after Kaio and the other two men. There were shouts, commands, the sound of someone being thrown to the ground. Everything happened so fast, like a film in fast forward. Knocking on the hotel room door interrupted the moment. Federal police. Open the door. Jonas approached the door and opened it. Two officers entered, weapons visible but not aimed. One was a middle-aged woman with a serious expression and eyes that seemed to have seen everything. The other was a younger man with the same determination on his face. "Marina Oliveira?" the woman asked. "Yes," Marina replied, her voice small. "I'm Detective Fernanda. We need you to come down to give a statement. We managed to arrest Caio and the two men accompanying him. But we need information from you to build the complete case." Marina nodded, still in a state of shock. Everything was happening so fast. Hours ago, she was crying on a park bench. Now, she was being pulled into a police operation. "Can she go?" Jonas asked, placing a protective hand on Marina's back. "Yes. But she needs to come with us. And you also need to give a statement. You're Jonas Brandt, right? The informant?" Jonas nodded. "Yes." "Then let's go. Both of you." Marina grabbed a jacket, still trembling. As she descended the hotel stairs with the officers, she felt as if she were in a dream. The lobby was full of curious onlookers, guests who had left their rooms to see what was happening. Some were taking photos with their phones. Others simply watched, mouths agape. Outside, the street was filled with police cars. Caio was being placed into one of them, hands handcuffed, his face full of rage and desperation. When he saw Marina, his eyes met hers, and there was a mix of hatred and despair in that gaze. "Marina," he shouted, trying to break free from the officers. "You don't understand what you've done. You don't know who you've gotten involved with." Marina looked away, her heart racing. But this time, it wasn't fear. It was anger. The anger of someone who had finally realized she had been deceived, that she had been used, that she had been discarded. She got into the police car beside Jonas, and as the vehicle pulled away from the hotel, she breathed deeply. The first part of the battle was over. But she knew the real fight was only just beginning. At the police station, Marina spent hours giving her statement. She told them everything: the initial betrayal, the discovery of the scam, the meeting with Jonas, Caio's desperate messages. The officers took notes, asked questions, requested clarifications. Detective Fernanda was professional but also compassionate. She understood what Marina had been through. "You were very brave," she said at one point. "Many victims can't do what you did. Many are paralyzed by fear or shame." "I didn't feel brave," Marina replied honestly. "I felt destroyed." "Courage isn't the absence of fear," Fernanda said. "It's acting despite the fear. And you did that." When Marina finally left the police station, the sun was rising. The night had transformed into morning. Christmas Eve had transformed into a new day. A day when everything had changed. Jonas was waiting outside, holding 2 coffees. "I thought you might need this," he said, offering one to her. Marina took the coffee, feeling the comforting warmth in her hands. "Thank you. For everything. I don't know what I would have done without you." "You would have done exactly the same," Jonas replied, repeating the words he had said days before. "Because you're strong. You always were." They walked through the city, which was slowly waking up. Shops began to open, people started to leave their homes. And despite everything that had happened, there was a sense of normalcy returning. "What are you going to do now?" Jonas asked. Marina thought about the question. "I don't know. Everything I planned, everything I dreamed about, was connected to Caio. Now, I need to figure out who I am without him." "Well," Jonas said, smiling slightly, "you can start by doing what you always wanted to do." "Right. Tell stories. Transform that pain into something creative." Marina smiled, feeling a spark of hope ignite inside her. "You really think I can do it?" "I'm sure of it," Jonas replied. "And when you write, you'll remember that you weren't alone. That there was someone there, witnessing your strength, believing in you when you didn't believe in yourself. In that moment, Marina realized something. Kaio's betrayal had destroyed one world. But it had also created space for a new world to be born. A world where she was the protagonist. A world where she had power. A world where she could choose her own path. And as she walked through the city with Jonas, drinking coffee, watching the sun rise over the buildings, Marina finally felt she could breathe again. Christmas Eve had been devastating. But Christmas morning, that cold, clear morning, full of possibilities, was promising. And for the first time since it all began, Marina allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, everything could be okay. Marina and Jonas walked in silence for a few minutes as the city awakened around them. The rising sun created a beautiful contrast with the Christmas lights still glowing in some homes. The beauty of the scene contrasted sharply with the harsh reality Marina was facing. You know, Marina began, when I thought about spending Christmas Eve alone, I imagined something completely different. A night of reflection, maybe solitude, but not this. Not such a shocking revelation. Jonas nodded, understanding the depth of that reflection. Life has a funny way of surprising us, doesn't it? Sometimes, the worst nights lead us to the best days. Marina smiled despite the tension. You always see the bright side of things. Not always, Jonas admitted. But I try. Because if we don't try to see something positive, the pain just swallows us whole. They arrived at a small plaza where a few people were already walking their dogs, others jogging. The rhythm of everyday life was comforting, but also a reminder that the world kept spinning, regardless of what happened to her. Do you think I can get through this? Marina asked, looking at Jonas. That I can move forward? Jonas nodded firmly. You already survived the hardest night of your life. And yes, you will be able to move forward. But it won't be easy. There will be difficult days, days when you'll question everything. But there will also be days of victory, days when you'll look back and see how far you've come. Marina felt a new wave of determination. She knew she needed to act, that she needed to make decisions that would lead her away from that situation. And maybe, just maybe, she could use all of this as inspiration for her writing. Transform pain into art. Into something that could help other people understand their own pain. They sat on a bench in the plaza, and Jonas pulled a notebook from his pocket. I write too. It helps process everything. Want to see? He opened the notebook and showed her some notes. Marina read, feeling connected. Jonas's words were simple but profound. They spoke of loss, of anger, of overcoming. And she felt that maybe, just maybe, she could do the same. Can you lend me this? Marina asked, looking at him. Of course. And if you need help getting started, I'm here. Marina smiled, feeling a bit lighter. Thank you, Jonas. That means a lot. They stayed there, watching life pass by, while Marina began to mentally sketch her own story. She thought about how to transform all of that into something she could share, something that could inspire other people. But as hope began to bloom, the reality of the situation still weighed heavily. Kaio was in jail, but what did that mean for her? How would she deal with public exposure, with shame, with the pain? Do you think people will judge me? Marina asked, her voice heavy with insecurity. Jonas looked at her, his eyes full of sincerity. Yes, some will. But others will support you. And remember, you're the victim. You didn't do anything wrong. Marina nodded, but she knew that society didn't always see things that way. She needed to prepare herself not just for emotional pain, but also for public judgment. I need a plan, she said, determined. A plan to deal with all of this. With the police, with the media, with my own life. Jonas agreed. First, you need a lawyer. Someone who can guide you on what to do, how to proceed. Second, you need to step back a bit. Maybe go to a friend's house, a family member's. And third, you need to start rebuilding your life. With new dreams, new plans. Marina felt a new wave of strength. She knew she needed to act, that she needed to make decisions that would lead her away from that situation. And maybe, just maybe, she could use all of this as inspiration for her writing. Transform pain into art. Into something that could help other people understand their own pain. They walked back to the hotel, where Marina could gather her things and plan the next steps. As they climbed the stairs, she thought about how to contact a lawyer, who she could trust, how to rebuild her life. When they reached the room, Marina began packing her things. Jonas stayed beside her, ready to help. Do you have someone to go with you? A friend, a family member? Marina thought for a moment. My mother. She lives in another city, but I can call her. She'll understand. Jonas nodded. Great. And in the meantime, I'll try to contact a lawyer my sister knows. Someone specialized in cases like this. Marina felt deep gratitude. You really don't have to do this, Jonas. I know, he replied. But I want to. And as Marina called her mother, Jonas stepped out to contact the lawyer. She felt a wave of relief hearing her mother's voice on the other end of the line. Someone who loved her unconditionally. Someone who wouldn't judge her. Hi, Mom, Marina said, trying to keep her voice steady. Sweetheart, did something happen? You never call this early. Marina took a deep breath. Something did happen, Mom. And I need your help. Her mother's voice made Marina collapse inside. It was like returning to a safe place after crossing an endless storm. She took a deep breath before responding, trying to contain the tremor in her voice. Mom. I'll explain everything when I get there. But I need to leave this city today. It's serious. On the other end of the line, silence. But a silence full of maternal concern. Sweetheart, are you hurt? Did he do something to you? Marina closed her eyes. The question echoed deeper than she wanted it to. He didn't hurt me physically. But he did worse things, Mom. Things that I'm still trying to understand. Her mother breathed, trembling. Come home. Just as you are. I'll take care of everything here. Marina couldn't hold back the tears that began to fall. That invitation was everything she needed, a safe harbor, an embrace she hadn't yet received. Thank you, Mom. I love you. I love you too, sweetheart. Come soon. When she hung up, she felt her entire body tremble as if only in that instant the real world had returned to its place. As if in that phone call she had finally gotten something Kaio had stolen for months: direction. Purpose. Family. Jonas returned to the room minutes later. His gaze carried concern, but also a silent determination, the same one Marina felt growing inside her. I managed to speak with the lawyer recommended by my sister, he said, closing the door behind him. Her name is Dr. Patricia. She can see you today. She wants to do everything in person to ensure your legal protection as soon as possible. Legal protection, Marina repeated, as if she were still getting used to the idea that she needed that. Never, in her entire life, had she imagined she'd be involved with police, lawyers, scams. None of this was part of her plans, her dreams, but Kaio had crossed all those boundaries. She said you need to bring everything we gathered yesterday. All the screenshots, transfers, and conversations. It'll help build the case against him. Marina nodded. I will. I want to do this right. I want to clear my name any way I can. Jonas approached slowly, as if trying to measure her emotional strength. And, your mother? Did she answer? Marina smiled for the first time since the early morning hours. A fragile smile, but a true one. Yes. I'm going there today. She knows something's wrong, but didn't want to pressure me. She just called me home. Jonas breathed in relief. That's good. You need a safe place, Marina. She observed him for a few seconds. And noticed the fatigue in his shoulders, the worry still stamped on his face. He was living through this too. He wasn't just support, he was someone directly affected by all of it. And you? She asked. How are you? Jonas looked away for a second, as if he wasn't prepared for the question. I'm processing everything too. Seeing Kaio arrested, knowing my sister will have justice, it's a lot. But seeing you in the middle of all this, it worries me. I'm relieved you're here, Marina said with sincerity. I don't know what would have happened if I'd been alone yesterday. Jonas gave a small, tired smile. Neither do I. The moment was interrupted by a knock on the door. Marina froze. For a second, fear returned with force, like a conditioned reflex. Jonas raised his hand, asking for silence. He walked to the door, looking through the peephole. It's hotel security, he said, relieved. They must have come to tell us something. He opened the door. A uniformed employee, nervous, held a clipboard. Good morning. We've come to inform you that, for security reasons, all guests on the third floor, including Ms. Marina Oliveira, have been advised to leave the floor temporarily for inspection. There was an attempted unauthorized entry through the side entrance in the early morning hours. The police asked us to reinforce protocols. Marina felt her heart sink. Unauthorized entry, she repeated, already knowing the answer. The man who was arrested, the employee explained. He tried to go upstairs before the police arrived. Tried to force the third floor door. But he didn't succeed. Jonas closed his eyes for an instant. It wasn't a surprise, but hearing it like this, officially, was crushing. Thank you for the warning, Jonas said, firm. Then he closed the door slowly. Marina brought her hands to her mouth, tears returning with force. He tried to come up here. Jonas, he was going to enter my room. Jonas stepped closer and held her hands. But he didn't get in. He couldn't. And now he's in jail. Marina, it's over. That part is over. But Marina knew, deep inside her, something screamed a greater truth. It wasn't over. Not yet. Because Kaio was in jail, yes. But the people above him, the ones who really ran everything, were still free. And Marina had been a piece of a larger scheme. A piece that now broke the game. She breathed deeply, wiped away her tears, and looked at Jonas. We need to go to the lawyer. And after that, I need to catch a bus to my mother's house. I'm going with you, Jonas said, without hesitation. You don't have to, Marina tried to argue. I'm going, he repeated, firm. Until you're safe with your mother. I won't leave you alone for a single minute until then. Marina felt her entire body relax. It wasn't weakness. It was relief. It was knowing that, for the first time since the beginning of this nightmare, someone was truly by her side, without ulterior motives, without manipulation, without illusion. She grabbed the backpack with the documents, took a deep breath, and looked at the mirror in the room. The woman reflected there wasn't the same one from Christmas Eve. She was stronger. More determined. And, despite everything, more alive. Let's go, she said. It's time to really begin. Jonas smiled. Let's go. They left the room, side by side. The hallway was silent, the cold light of morning illuminating the walls. And, for the first time in a long time, Marina felt she was walking toward the future, not running from the past. But she didn't know that, before the end of that day, one more revelation, the most painful of all, was still to come. Marina and Jonas arrived at lawyer Patricia's office, a middle-aged woman whose presence conveyed confidence and experience. The place was modest but welcoming, with shelves full of law books and a mahogany desk that seemed to have witnessed many battles. Patricia greeted them with a gentle smile, but her eyes showed the seriousness of the situation. "Marina, Jonas, come in. Let's talk." They sat down, and Patricia began examining the documents Marina had brought. Each message, each transfer, each piece of evidence of betrayal and crime. "This is very serious," Patricia said, not taking her eyes off the papers. "Caio used your information to create a fake company and divert money. And he wasn't working alone." Marina nodded, feeling the weight of reality. "I know. And that's why I need you. To make sure he doesn't get away with this and that I'm not harmed because of it." Patricia looked up, fixing her eyes on Marina. "We'll do everything necessary. But there's something you need to know." Marina felt her heart race. "What is it?" "The men who were with Caio last night," Patricia continued, "they're not just collectors. They're part of a much larger criminal organization. And they have deep connections." Jonas interrupted, "They have more information about the scheme. Information that could involve you even more if we don't act fast." Patricia nodded. "Exactly. They might try to use any loophole to incriminate you. That's why we need to be quick and precise." Marina felt the weight of the situation. "What do I do now?" "First, we're going to file a detailed police report," Patricia explained. "Second, we're going to request a protective order. Third, we're going to use these documents to build a solid defense. And fourth, you need to be prepared to testify." Marina breathed deeply. "Testify? Against them?" "Yes," Patricia confirmed. "Against Caio and against the organization. But don't worry. We'll prepare you. You won't be alone." Marina felt a knot in her throat. Testifying meant facing everything head-on. It meant not just dealing with emotional pain, but also with the real fear of retaliation. "Do you think they might try something against me?" Marina asked, her voice almost disappearing. "It's possible," Patricia admitted. "But we're here to protect you. And with Jonas by your side, I'm sure you'll be able to get through this." Jonas held Marina's hand, offering silent support. "I'll be here, Marina. And we'll do this together." They left the office with a clear plan. Marina felt a bit safer, but she also knew the road ahead would be long and difficult. The lawyer had given precise instructions, but she had also made it clear that the fight was far from over. On the way to the bus station, where Marina would catch a bus to her mother's house, Jonas spoke about the future. "You're going to need time to recover, but you also need a plan. Maybe start a new chapter in your life." Marina nodded, feeling a bit lighter with his support. Writing could be that new chapter. Transform all of this into something that makes sense, that helps other people. Jonas smiled. "That's a great idea. And I can help you with that too. Maybe we can exchange ideas, give you a push." They arrived at the bus station, and Marina felt a mix of relief and anxiety. Relief at being about to see her mother, but anxiety knowing that the fight was far from over. "Are you sure you don't want me to go with you?" Jonas asked. "I'm sure," Marina replied, trying to sound strong. "But thank you. For everything." Jonas hugged her quickly, a gesture that surprised her but also brought comfort. "Take care of yourself, Marina. And remember, you're not alone." Marina boarded the bus, sitting by the window. As the vehicle pulled away, she looked at the city that had been her home but now seemed like a battlefield. She thought about everything she had lived through in the last 24 hours. The betrayal, the discovery, the escape, Caio's arrest. And, above all, the revelation that she had been part of something much larger and more dangerous. But she also thought about Jonas. About how he had been an anchor in the midst of the storm. About how he had transformed a night of despair into a day of hope. And as the bus traveled on, Marina began to write. Not a message, but the beginning of a story. A story about betrayal, about discovery, about overcoming. A story that maybe, one day, could help other people understand that, even in the darkest nights, there's always a chance to find the light. But what Marina still didn't know was that, even in jail, Kaio had allies. Allies who weren't willing to let everything go. And who might still try to use Marina as a piece in their game. The bus ride lasted 6 hours. 6 hours of Marina staring out the window, watching the landscape change, watching other people's lives move forward while hers seemed suspended in time. She kept writing in the notebook Jonas had given her, turning every emotion into words, every pain into narrative. When she finally arrived at her mother's house, in a small town a few hours away, Marina felt her entire body relax. The house was simple, with a front garden full of flowers her mother lovingly cared for. And when the door opened, revealing her mother's face, worried, loving, protective, Marina broke down. She fell into her mother's arms and cried. Cried all the pain, all the anger, all the confusion she had been holding. And her mother simply hugged her, without asking questions, without judgment. Just a mother. Just love. It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe now, her mother whispered, kissing her hair. In the days that followed, Marina rested. Slept long hours, ate homemade food, stayed close to her mother. And slowly, she began to tell everything. The betrayal, the scam, the police, Jonas, the lawyer. Everything. Her mother listened with a broken heart, but also with admiration. You were so brave, Marina. So strong. I didn't feel strong, Marina replied honestly. But I think I did what I had to do. A week later, Marina received a call from Patricia. The lawyer had news. Marina, Kaio accepted a plea deal. He's going to confess everything, the scams, the organization, the names of everyone involved. In exchange, his sentence will be reduced. But the most important thing is that you are out of any accusation. You are a victim, not an accomplice. Marina felt an immense weight lift from her shoulders. It wasn't perfect justice, but it was something. It was closure. And what about the other men? Marina asked. They're being investigated. There's evidence of much bigger criminal activity. It may take time, but the police are working on it. When she hung up, Marina allowed herself to breathe deeply. The first part of the battle was over. Now the second part began, rebuilding. She returned to writing with more intensity. Jonas's notebook filled with page after page. Stories of betrayal, of overcoming, of hope. And slowly, those pages began to take shape. They began to turn into something bigger, a manuscript. A complete story. 2 months later, Marina received a message from Jonas. He had left the city, but they kept in touch. Hi Marina, how are you? My sister finally got a new job. She's recovering. And I'm writing too. About everything that happened. I was thinking maybe we could collaborate on a project. Turn our stories into something that could help others. Marina replied immediately. Yes. I'd love that. I have a manuscript almost ready. Want to read it? They began exchanging messages regularly. Jonas read Marina's manuscript and gave feedback. Marina read what Jonas was writing and offered suggestions. And slowly, what began as pain turned into creativity, into purpose, into healing. 6 months after the devastating Christmas, Marina received news that made her cry, but this time, with joy. A small but respected publisher had agreed to publish her book. Abandoned on Christmas Eve, a story of betrayal and rebuilding. The first printed copy arrived in her hands on a sunny June day. Marina held the book, seeing her name on the cover, seeing her words in print, seeing her story transformed into something tangible, something that could help other people. She called Jonas immediately. Jonas. The book is out. My book is out. Marina. Congratulations. I knew you could do it. Do you want to come to the launch? Here in my town? There was a pause on the other end. Yes. I'd really like to. And so, weeks later, Jonas returned to the town. Not to solve a crime, not to save someone from pain. But to celebrate. To be present at Marina's book launch. To see the woman he had met at her lowest moment now shining at her highest. The launch was held in a small but crowded bookstore. Friends, family, people who had read the manuscript before publication. And when Marina stepped onto the stage to speak about the book, about the story, about the journey, she saw Jonas in the audience. She saw his sister too, sitting beside him. Two victims who had become survivors. This book, Marina began, her voice steady, is about betrayal. But it's also about hope. It's about how, even when everything collapses, there is always a chance to rebuild. To find yourself again. To discover you're stronger than you ever imagined. She looked at Jonas as she spoke. And it's also about how sometimes, when we're at our worst moment, fate puts the right people in our path. People who see us, who understand us, who help us find the light again. After the event, Marina and Jonas walked through the town. They passed the square where they had met, the Christmas tree that still glowed in their memories. You know, Jonas said, when I came to this town, I thought it was to solve a crime. But I think it was to find you. Marina smiled, stopping. You believe in fate? Now I do, Jonas replied. Because you can't convince me that it was all coincidence. That everything that happened was just random. Marina nodded, understanding perfectly. Maybe fate is just life giving us opportunities. And what we do with those opportunities is what really matters. They continued walking, side by side, as the town around them woke to a new day. And Marina felt, for the first time since that devastating night, that she was truly alive. That she had overcome. That she had rebuilt. Kaio's betrayal had broken her world. But it had also created space for a new world to be born. A world where she was the protagonist. A world where she had power. A world where she had choice. And as the sun set over the town, Marina realized the story wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning. Because now, with her book published, with her voice amplified, she could help others find their own strength. Other women who had been betrayed, deceived, who thought they couldn't move forward. And maybe, just maybe, that Christmas night, the most devastating night of her life, had been exactly what she needed to find herself. Because sometimes, we need to fall apart completely to discover how to rebuild. We need to lose everything to understand what truly matters. And we need to be betrayed to learn to love ourselves unconditionally. Marina looked at Jonas, saw the smile on his lips, felt gratitude burning in her chest. And she knew, with absolute certainty, that she had made the right choice. That she had taken the right path. That she had rebuilt herself the right way. The Christmas Eve that began with abandonment ended with discovery. And the life that began with betrayal transformed into hope. Because in the end, we are not defined by the bad things that happen to us. We are defined by what we do afterward. And Marina had chosen to do something extraordinary.